Nithyananda.
Welcome back, Chandra Vimala, and we're very fortunate to have Megan back on the NU Council, so thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Today we're talking about fear, and so it's one of my favorite topics of all times.
That's frightening.
We've all faced, and probably on a daily basis, and the more that we challenge ourselves, the more that we get into a lot of fears as well. So, it's something that I've struggled with, just like everybody else has, and how we can overcome it. So we had a lot of questions around fear and how we can procrastinate and feel that we're stuck. There's phobias around that, and you have some great stories. Megan had been on the streets for a while and homeless, and so she had some great stories that she was telling me actually about some fear and some beautiful stories. So appreciate that you're going to be sharing those as well. So what we always like to talk about first is, what is fear? And fear is really an energy form. And I was kind of surprised, actually. I was surprised that fear actually was a form of energy. I don't know why I thought that at first.
But I think we're so used to our emotions just being emotions, you forget that there's a quantum physics answer behind it.
So that was just a very, where you can't get rid of energy. So it can be kind of at a lower or kind of a higher, but it's always present, that energy. It is actually, and we talk about different emotions, and every emotion is kind of attached to another emotion. And fear is actually a really deeper dimension of worry. And so that's kind of where I'm doing kind of again. I'm trying to get out of that.
Oh, okay.
So, fear is a deeper dimension of worry, and so that's attached to that type of emotion.
Right.
So we just wanted to thank you for all your emails, and we'll get into a little bit more of kind of what is fear and some of the questions that have happened. So we're going to go into the questions.
Excellent.
So the first one was from Alex, and he is from Canada. Thanks very much for your email. He says, I have a lot of challenges this year, and that I have to speak before a lot of people, and now I'm getting filmed. As soon as he sees the red light, and we kind of understand that one, I'm completely frozen. Nothing will come out, and I feel so incompetent. What is wrong with me? Why does that happen? What can I do to get over that fear?
Well, one thing I love about Swamiji's description of fear is that it is a survival technique that is built into the body. It's just like in a car, you've got autopilot, you've got electric windows. Fear is one of your options in the body. And so you don't want to disconnect it. It actually heightens your responses, gets adrenaline rushing, so it makes you extremely aware. And that is something you use when you're public speaking or in danger. So it's not something you ever want to try and get rid of. But as Swamiji says, you dive into it. Like, you have to just jump in. And what I noticed from public speaking is you just have to keep doing it. There's nothing wrong with you. It's not natural for anyone to stand in front of a crowd. I'm not sure what how long it took him to get comfortable.
He's a light master.
Different. Yeah, his resume is different than ours.
So far, yeah.
So for Alex, all I can say is you have to keep doing it, and all of a sudden you realize these are just friends you're talking to. Like, the more comfortable you get, the more it's like a friendly gathering. But those first times, nobody can avoid it. You have to just do it, and everybody goes through the same thing. And eventually what you'll learn is that you're using that energy to your benefit, and you stop calling it fear even. You start realizing it's just your prep. It's the prep energy for your talk. It's not fear anymore.
And that's just what you were saying. It's really a survival piece that's built into us, and we can't ever get rid of energy. But it is a bit of an adrenaline rush, and so it really does find that if you use it right, it works really well with your public speaking. And we did a quick, what is the top 10 here? And we checked here, and we were all wrong. We figured that it was deaf. That's what we thought it was. But actually, the top one was public speaking. And
Yeah.
We thought it was death. But the first one really was about the fear of flight, but it wasn't to do with youth. A lot of that was to do with adults. So the next one down was actually fear of public speaking.
Yeah, I believe that, because kids, you can throw them on as many crazy rides.
That's right.
Again, you know, and you're like,
we just have fear of watching them.
I know. Yeah. He's upside down again, yeah.
And I did some research on that, and it was very interesting that even presidents, people that speak on a daily basis, have fear.
Right.
And I never really thought that. I thought that, you know, when they do it on every 5 minutes, they're public speaking to someone.
Yeah.
And they always say that they get, and everyone has a bit different, from butterflies, you know, what we call that. It gets kind of up into the stomach, or you get sweaty, or, you know, you're fidgety. There's always something just before you go out to do public speaking. And that is a beautiful thing that some of them were saying, is that if they ever got rid of that, then they're going to stop.
Yeah.
Because it's really about something that they're passionate about, and it's a very natural thing to have that before you go out to do any public speaking or a camera that has a red light. How many people have fear just of a red light that comes on, and all of a sudden, it's very true. You know, when I first started, and I'm still working on it a little, is that as soon as the red light comes on, you just get mesmerized. I don't know anything.
That's right.
I think of anything. 15 years of counseling.
Stop looking at me.
15 years of counseling, I'm like, I don't know anything. So it's really very interesting, you know, how the body works and how the fear works, but it's working with it. And once you get past it, it's just a beautiful feeling that you've accomplished something and that you keep moving forward. So I like what Swamiji says too, is that when you have fear, it means that you're living, and it means that you're putting yourself out and giving yourself to try different things. If you have no fear, then it means that you're not putting yourself out to do anything.
Well, he says the only person on the planet who has no fear is dead. You're in a graveyard.
Or a dull life, like sitting there not doing anything. So fear is really, that's why I say it's such a beautiful emotion as well. It's because we're challenging ourselves. And that's just normal because it feels uncomfortable.
And you grow, you literally, fear pops you, expands you past your barriers every time it happens.
And I had to look for myself, you know, it's a new position for me, and I'm learning quite a lot as well. And, you know, like I said, I've had probably 15 years or more of different counseling, and it's like, why have I all of a sudden had no, thought I can't do anything? And it's really, when I thought more and I had read more, and Swamiji talks about it, is that it is part of an ego. And it's like either I lose my identity, or people, what they'll think of me. You know, it's part of, you know, will they start laughing, or, you know, they're going to, you know, reject me or walk away, or you know, you won't have anyone viewing your, you know, Swamiji, you know, who I represent. So, you know, it's very important for us, and it's very interesting that, you know, it's this what they call kind of passive ego that it's part of, that really is the background to a lot of fears that stop us.
Yeah, so it's the ego telling you should be afraid of this because it might get rid of me.
And so it's just something of just remembering that if we don't give it a try, I mean, it's like I said before, it's like getting into an aircraft and being able to fly something. I mean, you're not able to. There's a lot of things that we have to learn and have to try, and, you know, some things work and some things don't. So it's really putting ourselves out and not procrastinating and just moving forward and giving it a try. And then we'll find out if, you know, I need to improve here and there. And I mean, you know, for ours, you know, we've been doing a lot of, you know, practicing and taping or trying different things to improve different areas, and everyone does, you know. I don't think you see that. You think that you see, you know, people coming out and speaking beautifully, but you don't see how much practice or how much time that they put into it,
or how long they procrastinated before they did it. When I was getting ready to shoot my first film, I was scared to death, and I was writing the memoir for a famous artist at the same time, and he had survived 3 concentration camps during the war, and after the war in Yugoslavia, during World War II, he was then imprisoned because he refused to become communist. So he had been through everything, you know, life-threatening, starved for years, and he's watching me all in a knot about making a film, and he's just watching me, and he went, "What's the worst that can happen?" And when you think about that, it's like, I'm not going to end up lying bleeding in the gutter because I tried to do something that I wasn't comfortable with. And that pushed me through. You know, just that simple question, what's the worst that could happen? You know, and I think, unless you're bungee jumping or jumping out of an airplane, you might want to think twice. But really, if you ask yourself that question, public speaking, what's the worst that could happen? You're not going to die.
No.
You'll still have friends after.
Yeah. So it's really, and bravo to you to get out and do it. Good for you that you're trying this. It's lots of challenges. Excellent. That's what we need to be doing. And so for this one, I just think continue.
Yeah, keep going, Alex.
Keep going and really enjoy it. I think we forget to have fun. And that's, it's just about laughing and having some fun. And, sometimes when we're making these mistakes, and I know, I said kind of a lot. And, and then you just have to laugh at yourself. And now, you just become more aware and you're starting to grow and make all of those changes. So, continue, make a change in the world. And we're looking forward to hearing how it's going to be amazing in all of your taping and filming. That brings us to the second question, and that comes from Kelly in Austin, Texas. Very common, actually, and these are on the phobias. So she's terrified of spiders. And she says summer is a torture for her when so many is around and doesn't know what to do. Stops her from doing a lot of things just because of the fear of the spiders around. How can I get rid of this fear?
Well, I think, again, it goes into Swamiji talking about you have to go right into it. And you have to go into it intensely. And it's almost like it's a button, like an emergency button. And what I found is some of the experiences that happened to me when I was homeless with my child was, it's like the button gets hit, and then it stops working. And so you have to just jump in. You have to let that fear happen and wallow in it. You have to feel that rush and the shaking and, the weeping or whatever has to happen. And then after you do that a couple times, it stops. You literally can't operate at that level for very long. So, she literally might have to just sit in a room and stare at a spider and watch him walk around, maybe give him a name, and pretend it's a cat, and just realize it's a creature. It's just a creature. But I think also Swamiji has mentioned how phobias tend to have been a past life event, that something has probably happened to her in a past life with spiders that was very terrifying, and so that's the in them.
And that's what we've done in counseling when you are not able to get past that spider, just what you were talking about. If it's too hard to look at a spider, if you're that terrified, because phobias can be very strong, just like you said, from some past lives that are happening. Take a picture and just sit there and look at it. And just slowly be able then to touch the picture and then work towards a live spider where it's contained, so you know that you're not having to worry. So someone would put it in a container, and the more that you do that, you're slowly moving up to seeing like a spider. And just like you said, we're looking at having a name. That's just exactly it, because we have something out there and it just adds so much more fear to it. If you have a little bit of fun with it and be able to have kind of a pet name to it, you start to work out through those phobias. And they are very natural. Most people have fears. It's just that sometimes the phobias get a little bit big, and then that stops us through life. I had claustrophobia for quite a lot of years until I came to see Swamiji. And cured me of that. That any closed claustrophobia is closed areas. And it was just terrifying for me, and planes and anything like caves and closed down. I had that since I was like 5 years old. And again, I slowly did the same thing. I was seeing caves. And slowly I would get where I felt comfortable, and then I would just have some fun with the caves. And then I would move where I would sit outside a cave. And so you slowly what they call desensitization. So it's being able to slowly move your way through, and a real awareness, just being able to step back and just go through it, like you said. Because what happens is when we're saying we're fearful, I shouldn't be fearful, really what happens in the Swamiji talks, it just brings it bigger. The struggle becomes a struggle. And it gets more intensified. And that just adds more actual fear and phobias around that. So it's okay, just say I have that fear, and then slowly work through that with some of the tips that we've talked about, and that phobia will slowly go away.
Actually, there was a hilarious bit helping kids with that in one of the Harry Potter movies. J.K. Rowling had this one class where I think the spell was ridiculosis or something, and so this box would manifest whatever your fear was. So each kid had to stand in front of the box, and then, out would come a spider in one case, and then they do the spell ridiculosa, and the girl who was afraid of spiders, it was a giant spider, and all of a sudden it was on roller skates and it flopped around and fell, and everyone laughed. So each fear became something hilarious. Should we stop?
Just start the sentence again.
Okay.
No, you don't have to stop the camera. Go ahead.
So everything that the kids were afraid of just became ridiculous. And I think it's a great lesson for all of us.
Yeah. Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, it was very funny.
I was familiar with it.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into our next question.
Okay.
So again, if we don't answer or things are not very clear, or you have some other great suggestions that other people have done, please write into us, because it's great to hear from you. So the next question was from Niran from India, and his fear is so sudden that it comes and it goes really fast. Tries to be aware, that we had talked about in other shows, but it's too fast, and so we can't even look at it or be aware when it does happen. So he wants to know when those sudden fear, like why that happens and what that's about.
Right.
And Swamiji talks about fear strokes.
Yeah.
And that's just a really natural, again, it's part of our being able to have that fight-flight.
Right.
That's being able to survive. And so that is really true, and those are the things that, somebody comes up behind you, and, you have those immediate strokes, or you've forgotten, did I lock the door, or all of a sudden the date is, you're thinking what the date is, and is it exam day today?
Right.
So you have those immediate, fear strokes, and then all of a sudden, they're gone.
Yeah.
And he says we probably have at least 6 a day. But that really does affect our immune system. So if we're ending up having a lot of them, it's something, again, to look after you've completed them, especially if it's the same type of fear stroke that you're having, is around awareness around that, and trying to be able to be prepared a little bit ahead of time if that is something. I used to have that. I don't know why it was about locking my door. I'd get halfway and I'd be like, did I leave the door wide open? Yeah. And I don't know why. And then I, of course, second guessed, and I had those, where it's what. So I'd always have to go back and kind of see. But then I knew, I had the same one, so I would always do a double check. Before I went, I was very conscious. I said, I'm walking to the door, I'm locking the door. When you say that actually to yourself, when there's specific types of fear stroke, then it does come into your consciousness. Right. And then you're able to because you've said it out loud, or I've unplugged the iron, or you've done something with your books, or I've checked the date today, I've looked on my computer and this is what the day is, and no, I don't have an exam. But there are common ones that happen when someone comes up behind you, or those common. But it's interesting because Swamiji talks about having a mature nervous system, and what he's got all of us at the ashram doing right now is the yoga. And I've noticed that anyone who is in good physical shape has a stronger nervous system. That's true. My dad was a mountain climber, and that was his way of releasing stress. And during the week, when things came that would cause fear strokes in my mom, he would just flow with it. And it was literally a difference in physical conditioning. He just could handle it. And I think people who underestimate, I don't need to work out, or I don't need to be in shape, I'm a mental person, they are more susceptible to fear strokes because it's just their nervous system isn't being built the way it is built during yoga, which is what Swamiji's pushing so heavily right now, that you can't attain enlightenment if you're not working out at the same time, which, in the past, everyone just thought, I'll just go sit in a cave and meditate, or sit on the beach. Are they going to just idle out there? You think it's okay? There we go. The days of doing that are gone. You really do have to have a body now that can handle emotional upsets. Otherwise, you'll never find your balance. So, and there's a very famous book, Chop Wood, Carry Water. When the troubles of the world get to you,
do something physical, chop wood, carry water, work in a garden. That's what I used to do to release, if something was really scaring me, just doing something physical, it gets you out of your head, exhausts you, and then you sleep. It was easy to think about, being afraid because I was homeless. And luckily, there was so much walking involved in that every day, walking to do this, walking to get food, walking to, and ironically, when I slept the soundest sleeps I've ever, and I think it was because I was so aware and so in the moment in my life that existence gave me a break. When it was time to sleep, there was no nightmares. Whereas when I was safer and in society and had a place and had the stuff, I would have nightmares of fears. So I think when you're living in very much in the present, that fear does go away.
And it keeps you very grounded.
Yes.
So that's very true. The more that you build that up, and combine it with some meditation.
Right.
Because I've really noticed, like even through my work, when I didn't meditate or I hadn't worked through yoga, I was a lot more on edge.
Right.
And so things would kind of affect me.
Right.
Because I felt that I wasn't grounded. But when I did the meditation in the morning and I did the yoga in the morning, I really did feel so much more grounded, and everything was in succinct. So when I did go out, things that were the same that happened,
right,
I had this calmness about it.
Right.
So it was stepping out, and I was looking out in, and I didn't really pulled into that type of emotion.
Nice.
And I didn't have that fear. So, that's a great point. So, and there were some things, Megan, that I really appreciate you talking about. The time that you were like homeless, and there was probably a lot of fear situations that came up. And I think the story that you were telling me about Dan.
Dan, yeah.
I think that couples into a lot of what we were talking about in communication, and we have a lot of young people that are writing in of fear of bullies or people that have a presence and they just feel weak or small around them. And so when we were talking, I really felt that it was important to share that story, because I think it's really beneficial for young people to hear that, and then we'll talk a bit more about it. So.
Well, and I think it was one of the most profound stories I'd heard as an example of how you react to a situation, and how you can change your reality. Do you have a victim mentality, or are you going to be in charge of your life? And this friend of mine, Dan, when I met him, he was already a massage therapist, but he finally confided in me that he had been a drug runner. Like during the height of the cocaine trade back in the 80s, he was flying to Colombia and bringing back vast amounts of cocaine, and he was finally caught in a huge American sting operation, which means the FBI and everyone was involved, and they caught him. He was thrown in a maximum security penitentiary, which means he was in with the toughest criminals in America. And his roommate was a gigantic African-American angry man, and Dan was this sort of corporate executive white guy, and they immediately hated each other. They just sort of each represented what the other feared, and they were stuck in a cell, 2 by 6 feet, and they had to live with each other all the time. And maybe more than 2 by 6 feet. That might have been a little tight. That's right. Small spaces. How to solve your M-grams. Put you all in a little room. So they were living with each other day after day after day, an hour in the yard. That was it. And one day there was a power outage, and the whole place went black, which also meant the guards couldn't see them. The security cameras were off. Everything was off. And this man had fashioned a knife out of something, a spoon. He had managed to, in shop, the big angry guy had created a knife. And so when the lights went off, he grabbed Dan by the neck and he just said, "This is your last day on the planet. Like, I am done with you." And Dan said, his whole life flashed in front of his eyes. He said it was this slow motion, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. And luckily he had studied very mystical things. Ironically, a lot of drug dealers get into mysticism and spiritual things. They don't absorb it well enough. The drug stops that from happening, but they tend to read teachings, and the teachings of a guru popped into his head. Existence was giving him that lifeline. And he said, "I don't believe you are this murderer. He said, I've watched you draw, and I believe you're an artist. You know, I don't believe, you know, and in his mind he's like, I don't believe this is my last day on earth, you know, and this big angry man just started crying like a child and dropped the knife and dropped Dan, and the lights came on and they sat and they talked for hours. And this man just poured his heart out. You know, he was a young artistic kid and got involved in a street gang, and he didn't have family, and so the gang brought him up. And your initiation is you have to kill somebody, and you know, it had led him to this position. And for this man to have spotted the artist in him was that click, as Swamiji said, it just unraveled him. And they ended up becoming friends and sort of mentoring each other. And when they both got out, and the one became a professional artist and continued to send Dan, you know, handmade greeting cards, and Dan became a healer, a massage therapist, and then got involved in Chinese medicine. So sometimes, you know, penitentiaries are an amazing grace because they took two guys who were on exact wrong paths in life and stopped them and gave them that opportunity to flip out of it.
And you know, that's what we had been talking about when Mom Anisha was here around communication and how we actually respond to an event. I think that we make a lot of assumptions about people, and it's really quick to make that you know, they're either got a better life or you know, there's something else that's going on, and a lot of times they have very rough lives, and so it's stepping back and being able to turn things, like you said, around. It's amazing how that usually can touch people and help them turn around.
Yeah, and usually if someone's behaving badly, there's a lot of hurt going on. And like Swamiji says, the fear is, the next step from fear is anger. You know, and so if someone's angry, what are they afraid of? You know, if you can help them with what they're afraid of, maybe they'll, you know, one example we talked about was, you know, a kid comes home late, misses curfew, and the parent just goes nuts. Why, you know, and the child is, all they're seeing is anger from its parent, not realizing that the parent was scared to death that something had happened. There'd been an accident or the child was dead. So that anger is masking deep fear.
And absolutely. And so it's being able to, again, step back and really be able to be aware of the situation.
Right.
That a lot of times really what fear is passive, and anger is an active.
Right.
And so a lot of times when that is happening, and the anger that's happening, it's that they're just active in the fear. And like I said, the fear is more the passive mode.
Yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that. And is there any more stories, I think, that you were maybe wanting to share?
Well, actually, the one story I want to share is actually Swamiji's. The one about...
we were talking, yes.
Yeah, his big confrontation with fear was for a long time, his spiritual ritual was going around the hill, but going around the Arunachala hill every morning. And this one morning he started just after midnight, and he was singing kirtans and, you know, headed out around the hill and looked up, and there was a pack of hyenas, which, you know, are scavengers and will tear you apart in a second. And it jolted him so much that he said he let out a primal scream, like it was such a deep, strong, you know, blah, kind of scream. And it moved it out, the shock, you know, the chakra it's connected with. And
what do you say that?
Swadhisthana?
Swadhisthana?
The energy like shot out of that. And he said all of a sudden a sannyasi appeared, an old man with a stick, scared the hyenas away. And as soon as the hyenas went away, the man vanished. And but Swamiji said because he'd gone so deeply into it and let it be such a primal reaction that it was gone. Like that was the first and last time that ever happened to him. And my story that coincides with that was when my son was about 8 months old, a crack addict tried to kill us and came at us with an axe, and I was literally pinned on the ground holding a baby with his guy with an axe, and the sound that came out of me I've never heard before or since. It was this deep guttural roar, and the whole neighborhood heard it. Like, it was just the most bizarre noise to come out of me. And immediately everyone rushed, and the guy was pulled off, and it popped something out of me. And I can't use the term fearless, because as Swamiji says, we keep that fear as a tool. But it definitely, that rattling reaction to fear is gone. It's sort of like I faced the most frightening thing that I could have imagined. And so now if someone comes up to me and goes boo, I go boo. Like, what, you're going to take me? So it's good to have that, like he says, go into it, let it shake you and rattle you and make your teeth shake, whatever. But if you sink into it completely, it's gone. Yeah.
And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it, was that we have some extreme situations, but it happens more in also just smaller situations.
Yeah, modern day is smaller,
But the big thing is that it's the same, that we accept that we're fearful, and there's lots of things of being aware and allowing it to go out. And, be safe when you're going to be doing it, but like you said, move it, shake it, have it come out, and be able to get it released from your body. And like I said, some of them are smaller that may have dealt with the spiders. You have the picture, and you're starting to kind of work through that phobia. So there's lots of things that we've talked about that different ways that we could work. Like I said, he's talking about meditation and that visualization, being really aware. So it was really nice to be able to talk about. We all get into very difficult situations and extreme, to others that is kind of our day-to-day things.
Right.
And so there's lots of techniques and ways, but definitely just say that you're fearful, not trying to hold, and being able to be really aware around that. Some of them are, like we said, public speaking, having the different things in space, a lot of times for around space area. So it's just, again, being able to do the visualization, slowly work your way through that. And other times around the public speaking, like we said, it's just putting yourself out there. Just stop procrastinating. It's, just do it. Because it's always like, tomorrow I'll try. Tomorrow is today. Give it a try. You have nothing to lose.
Well, and the other thing too is existence only gives you what you're capable of handling. Like the situations that happened to me came after years of consciously deciding to confront my fears, because I was raised by a very fearful mother. And so when I was young, I just started saying, I'm going to try that. I refuse to be afraid of that. So the first things I confronted were very small. Like existence didn't throw me into the axe-wielding crackhead, when I was 10. So it only gives you what it knows you can cope with. And it's like when you're in grade 1, you get a grade 1 test. When you're in university, you get university tests. You're never given a university test in grade 1. So, whether it's fear or worry or stress, you move up in increments. And existence is a very kind, gentle place. And even though I couldn't believe that I was ready for the things that were happening, I was.
Dealt with it.
Like at the end of the day, you're sort of like, oh, I'm still here. Nothing happened to me. And every time that fear was right in my face, because I refused to be a victim, nothing ever happened. So it's really interesting, standing face to face with those things and watching them dissipate. Yeah.
That's hopefully that helps out. And,
I hope.
And again, if you have any questions or you want more information, we're really happy to answer them, and we really do appreciate all of your emails. So thank you, Megan, for joining us.
Thank you.
It's always a real pleasure. And so thank you for sharing.
My pleasure.
So we'll see you on our next show.
Nithyananda.